people kind of felt that it was coming. Things were kind of getting quite aggressive and lots of tension. I think it was
in Australia, did you feel that the tension was building, anti-Islamic sentiment was building?
In Australia it's a big thing.
The devastating tragedy that's taken place in New Zealand. 50 people killed, 50 people critically injured. Instead of fanning the flames of Islamophobia, Jacinda Ardern and her government have done something unprecedented.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the believers in their mutual kindness, compassion and sympathy are just like one body. When any part of the body suffers, the whole body feels pain. New Zealand mourns with you.
Finally, somebody has brazenly stared extremism in the face and said point blank that racism is not welcome here. And so we took to the streets of London to find out what Londoners have to say about this. Who is a terrorist really? How do we define it? And what is the solution to terrorism that's brewing in our own streets? You're from Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
How do you define a terrorist?
Someone who wants to evoke terror in other people or in society.
Saw 57 anti-Muslim or Islamophobic attacks on the back of New Zealand, which is almost a 10 times spike.
Yeah.
I worked in an office where people make jokes about me being a terrorist, which is
you being a terrorist.
Yeah, but because that's a cultural thing. People who are about 40 in the UK think of Irish people as this mass. So I am aware of the ridiculous ways it manifests.
Every time something happens and they're like, oh, the Muslims are terrible people. They're like, no, we're not. We're actually great.
Do you think Islam teaches terrorism?
No.
Do you have any Muslim friends?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. How are they blowing themselves up?
No.
Okay.
It's these extremists. There's only like one or two extreme people, but that's in every faith. There's always like one person that takes something too far.
Yeah. In fact, in both the US and Britain, anti-Muslim sentiments are skyrocketing. 2017 saw a 26% increase in the UK, the worst ever recorded. 2/5 of US Americans think that Islam is not compatible with the West. Listen to this. Anders Breivik kills 77 people in Norway, described as a mass murderer. A German wings pilot drives a plane into a mountain, killing 150 people, declared that he had mental health issues. Stephen Paddock killed 58 people in a mass shooting, declared a lone wolf. Hardly ever is the word terrorist used for these people. Do you feel that the media represents the word terrorist fairly?
No.
Definitely not.
When there's a coloured person, it's automatically assumed as a terrorist attack. When it's not, there's hesitation and a lot of umming and ahhing if it is or not. Lots of people will just be like the gunman or the attacker.
Exactly.
They won't actually use that word terrorist.
Hi there. Hey, I called earlier to speak to someone in the editorial office, but nobody picked up. Would you be able to get me in touch with anyone else? I have some questions for some research. I'm a Canadian imam conducting research on the use of the word terrorist versus lone wolf at different papers. I was wondering if you could please help me.
Right, bear with me one moment.
This isn't working. Nobody wants to talk about this. It's as though people are afraid answer the question of how the word terrorist is used versus lone wolf. Anyone? If there's any department?
Right, hold on a moment.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a word more used in headlines than terrorism, radicalism, and extremism. But when we called, suddenly nobody knew, and then I called a higher level and a higher level and a higher level, and suddenly nobody knows how the word terrorist is applied in their own paper. I've come here on my own now to the British Library to try to investigate and find out how the word terrorist has been used historically in print media. I was unsurprised to find that when you type Muslim terrorist or Islamic terrorism, you'll get thousands upon thousands of hits from 2001 onward, especially peaking in 2006. Yet, when you type in white supremacist terrorism or white terrorism or non-Muslim terrorism, you'll be hard-pressed to find any at all. The newspaper is the most potent of all permanent forces operating on the public mind. Why do you think it takes so long to label a non-Muslim a terrorist?
Racism, I would say.
Do you find Muslims terrifying?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Absolutely not. They're just like everybody else.
Do you agree that this imbalance exists in the media as you've grown up?
Massively. Yeah, massively.
Where do you think he was radicalized, the shooter?
Australia.
That's very bold and honest of you.
No doubt. People are like that. It's terrible. And definitely action should be taken. I mean, the government knew about him in Sydney, I think, and it shouldn't be happening at all.
One of the things that I'm really proud of is how New Zealand came together as a country in response to this. And obviously, the world sees that manifested in our Prime Minister.
The Caliph of tens of millions of Ahmadi Muslims around the world released a statement saying that the way that the New Zealand government has responded is a lesson for the rest of the world.
New Zealand की हुकूमत ने और ख़ास तौर पर वज़ीर-ए-आज़म ने जिन आला-तरीन अखलाक का मुज़ाहिरा किया है और हुकूमत के फ़राइज़ अदा करने का हक़ अदा किया है, वो भी अपनी मिसाल आप है.
Would you agree with this?
I would agree with that. As I said, she's been exemplary and she shows up a lot of world leaders.
Yeah. And when it comes to racial, ethnic or religious hatred, we all have to unite with solidarity and a firm hand. What do you think about this?
I definitely agree. I feel like we should all stand against intolerance and racism, Islamophobia and xenophobia, because it shouldn't have a place in our society.
कई बेगुनाह और मासूम और बच्चे मजहबी और कौमी मुनाफरत की भीड़ चढ़ गए और शहीद किए गए. अल्लाह ताला इन सब पर रहम का सलूक फरमाए उनसे और उनके लवाहिकीन को सब्र अता फरमाए.